those successful people who seem to have it all. You see them chatting confidently at business meetings or comfortably at social parties. They're the ones with the best jobs, the nicest spouses, the finest friends, the biggest bank accounts, or the most fashionable zip codes. But wait a minute. A lot of them aren't smarter than you, they're not more educated than you. They're not even better looking, so what is it? Some people suspect they inherited it. Others say they married it or were just plain lucky. Tell them to think again. What it boils down to is their more skillful way of dealing with fellow human beings. You see, nobody gets to the top alone. Over the years, people who seem to have it all have captured the hearts and conquered the minds of hundreds of others who helped boost them, rung by rung, to the top of whatever corporate or social ladder they chose. Wannabes wandering around at the foot of the ladder often gaze up and grouse that the big boys and big girls at the top aerosnobs. When big players don't give them their friendship, love, or business, they call them cliquish or accuse them of belonging to old boy network. Some grumble they hit their heads against a glass ceiling. The complaining little leaguers never realize the rejection was their own fault. They'll never know they blew the affair. Thexy introduction: how to get anything you want from anybody, well, at least have the best crack at it. Copyright 2003 by Lael Loans. Click here for terms of use. Friendship or the deal because of their own communications fumbles. It's as though well-liked people have a bag of tricks, a magic, or a Midas touch that turns everything they do into success. What's in their bag of tricks? You'll find a lot of things. A substance that solidifies friendships, a wizardry that wins minds, and a magic that makes people fall in love with them. They also possess a quality that makes bosses hire and then promote, a characteristic that keeps clients coming back, and an asset that makes customers buy from them and not the competition. We all have a few of those tricks in our bags, some more than others. Those with a whole lot of them are big winners in life. How to Talk to Anyone gives you 92 of these little tricks they use every day so you too can play the game to perfection and get whatever you want in life. How the little tricks were unveiled many years ago. A drama teacher, exasperated at my bad acting in a college play, shouted, "No, no, your body is belying your words, every tiny movement, every body position," he howled. "Divulge us your private thoughts. Your face can make 7,000 different expressions, and each exposes precisely who you are and what you are thinking at any particular moment." Then he said something I'll never forget. "And your body. The way you move is your autobiography in motion." How right he was. On the stage of real life, every physical move you make subliminally tells everyone in eyeshot the story of your life. Dogs hear sounds our ears can't detect. Bats see shapes in the darkness that elude our eyes. And people make moves that are beneath human consciousness but have tremendous power to attract or repel. Every smile, every frown, every syllable you utter, or every arbitrary choice of word that passes between your lips can draw others toward you or make them want to run away. Roman 12 Introduction. Copyright 2003 by Lael Loans. Click here for terms of use. Men, did your gut feeling ever tell you to jump ship on a deal? Women, did your women's intuition make you accept or reject an offer? On a conscious level, we may not be aware of what hunch is, but like the ear of the dog or the eye of the bat, feelments that make up subliminal sentiments are very real. Imagine, please, two humans in a complex box wired with circuits to record all the signals flowing between the two, as many's 10,000 units of information flow per second. Probably lifetime efforts of roughly half the adult population of the United States would be required to sort the units in 1 hour's interaction between two subjects. A University of Pennsylvania Communications Authority estimates one with the zillions of subtle actions and reactions zapping back and forth between two human beings. Can we come up with concrete techniques to make our every communication clear, confident, credible, and charismatic? Determined to find the answer. I read practically every book written on communication skills, charisma, and chemistry between people. I explored hundreds of studies conducted around the world on what qualities made up leadership and credibility. Intrepid social scientists left no stone unturned in their quest to find the formula. For example, optimistic Chinese researchers hopping charisma might be in the diet went so far as to compare the relationship of personality type to the catecholamine level in subjects. Urine too needless to say, their thesis was soon shelved. Dale Carnegie was great for the 20th century, but this is the 21st. Most of the studies simply confirmed Dale Carnegie's 1936 classic, How to Win Friends and Influence People 3. His wisdom for the ages said success lay in smiling, showing interest in other people, and introduction. CI. Copyright 2003 by Lael Loans. Click here for terms of use. Making them feel good about themselves. That's no surprise, I thought. It's as true today as it was more than 60 years ago. So if Dale Carnegie and hundreds of others since offer the same astute advice, why do we need another book telling us how to win friends and influence people? 2 mammoth reasons. Reason 1. Suppose a sage told you, when in China speak Chinese, but gave you no language lessons. Dale Carnegie and many communications experts are like that sage. They tell us what to do but not how to do it. In today's sophisticated world, it's not enough to say smile or give sincere compliments. Cynical business people today see more subtleties in your smile, more complexities in your compliment. Accomplished or attractive people are surrounded by smiling sycophants feigning interest and fawning all over them. Prospects are tired of salespeople who say, "The suit looks great on you," when their fingers are caressing cash register keys. Women are wary of suitors who say, "You are beautiful," when the bedroom door is in view. Reason 2. The world is a very different place than it was in 1936 and we need a new formula for success. To find it, I observed the superstars of today. I explored techniques used by top salespeople to close the sale, speakers to convince, clergy to convert, performers to engross, sex symbols to seduce, and athletes to win. I found concrete building blocks to the elusive qualities that lead to their success. Then I broke them down into easily digestible news-you-can-use techniques. I gave each a name that will quickly come to mind when you find yourself in a communications conundrum. As I developed the techniques, I began sharing them with audiences around the country. Participants in my communication seminars gave me their ideas. My clients, many of them CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, enthusiastically offered their observations. When I was in the presence of the most successful and beloved leaders, I analyzed their body language and their facial introduction. Expressions, I listened carefully to their casual conversations, their timing, and their choice of words. I watched as they dealt with their families, friends, associates, and adversaries. Every time I detected a little nip of magic in their communicating, I asked them to pluck it out with tweezers and expose it to the bright light of consciousness. We analyzed it together, and I then turned it into an easy-to-do little trick others could duplicate and profit from. My findings and the strokes of some of those very effective folks are in this book. Some are subtle, some are surprising. Beautiful are achievable. When you master them, everyone from new acquaintances to family, friends, and business associates will happily open their hearts, homes, companies, and even wallets to give away whatever they can. There's a bonus. As you sail through life with your new communication skills, you'll look back and see some very happy giver smiling in your wake. Introductions. This page intentionally left blank. 1 Part 1 How to intrigue everyone without saying a word. You only have 10 seconds to show you're a somebody. The exact moment that two humans lay eyes on each other has some potency. The first sight of you is a brilliant holograph. It burns its way into your new acquaintance's eyes and can stay emblazoned in his or her memory forever. Artists are sometimes able to capture this quicksilver, fleeting emotional response. My friend Robert Grossman is an accomplished caricature artist who draws regularly for Forbes, Newsweek, Sports Illustrated, Rolling Stone, and other popular publications. Bob has a unique gift for capturing not only the physical appearance of his subjects, but for zeroing in on the essence of their personalities. The bodies and souls of hundreds of luminaries radiate from his sketch pad. One glance at his caricatures of famous people, and you can actually see their personalities. Copyright 2003 by Lael Loans. Click here for terms of use. Sometimes at a party, Bob will do a quick sketch on a cocktail napkin of a guest. Hovering over Bob's shoulder, the onlookers gasp as they watch their friend's image in essence materialize before their eyes. When he's finished drawing, he puts his pen down and hands the napkin to the subject. Often a puzzled look comes over the subject's face. He or she usually mumbles something like, "Well, that's great, but it really isn't me." The crowd's convincing crescendo of, "Oh yes it is," drowns subject out and squelches any lingering doubt. The confused subject is left to stare back at the world's view of himself or herself in the napkin. Once when I was visiting Bob's studio, I asked him how heck could capture people's personalities so well. He said, "It's simple, I just look at them." No, I asked, "How do you capture their personalities? Don't you have to do a lot of research about their lifestyle, their history?" "No, I told you, Lael, I just look at them." He went on to explain, almost every facet of people's personalities is evident from their appearance, their posture, the way they move. For instance, he said, calling me over to a file where he kept his caricatures of political figures. "See," Bob said, pointing to angles on various presidential body parts. "Here, the boyishness of Clinton, showing me his half-smile, the awkwardness of the elder George Bush, pointing to his shoulder angle, the charm of Reagan, nodding the ex-president's smiling eyes, the shiftiness of Nixon, pointing to the furtive tilt of his head." Digging a little deeper into his file, he pulled out Franklin Delano Roosevelt and pointing to the nose high in the air, "Here's the pride of FDR." It's all in the face and the body. First impressions are indelible. Why? Because in our fast-paced, information overload world of multiple stimuli bombarding us every second, people's heads are spinning. They must form to how to talk to anyone. Quick judgments to make sense of the world and get on with what they have to do. So whenever people meet you, they take an instant mental snapshot. That image of you becomes the data they deal with for a very long time. Your body shrieks before your lips can speak. Are their data accurate? Amazingly enough, yes. Even before your lips part and the first syllable escapes, the essence of you has already axed its way into their brains. The way you look and the way you move is more than 80% of someone's first impression of you. Not one word need be spoken. I've lived and worked in countries where I didn't speak the native language. Yet without one understandable syllable spoken between us, the years proved my first impressions were on target. Whenever I met new colleagues, I could tell instantly how friendly they felt toward me, how confident they were, and approximately how much stature they had in the company. I could sense just from seeing them move, who the heavyweights were and who were the welterweights. I have no extrasensory skill. You know too, how, because before you have had time to process a rational thought, you get a sixth sense about someone. Studies have shown emotional breakdowns occur even before the brain has had time to register what's causing that. Thus the moment someone looks at you, he or she experiences a massive hit, the impact of which lays the groundwork for the entire relationship. Bob told me he captured that first hit in creating his caricatures. Deciding to pursue my own agenda for how to talk to anyone, I asked Bob if you wanted to portray somebody realistic, intelligent, strong, charismatic, principled, fascinating, caring, interested in other people. How to intrigue everyone without saying a word. 3. Easy, Bob interrupted. He knew precisely what I was getting at. Just give him great posture, a heads-up look, a confident smile, and a direct gaze. It's the ideal image for somebody who's a somebody. How to look like a somebody. My friend Karen is a highly respected professional in the home furnishings business. Her husband is an equally big name in the communications field. They have 2 small sons. Whenever Karen is at a home furnishings industry event, everyone pays deference to her. She's a very important person in that world. Her colleagues at conventions jostle for position just to be seen casually chatting with her, and they hope be photographed rubbing elbows with her for industry bibles like home furnishings executive and furniture world. Yet Karen complains when she accompanies her husband to communications functions, she might as well be a nobody. When she takes her kids to school functions, she's just another mom. She once asked me, Lael, how can I stand out from the crowd so people who don't know me will approach me and at least assume I'm an interesting person? The techniques in this section accomplish precisely that. When you use the next 9 techniques, you will come across as a special person to everyone you meet. You will stand out as a somebody in whatever crowd you find yourself in, even if it's not your crowd. Let's start with your smile. For how to talk to anyone. 1936, one of Dale Carnegie's 6 musts in how to win friends and influence people with smile. His edict has been echoed each decade by practically every communications guru who ever put pen to paper or mouth to microphone. However, at the turn-off millennium, it's high time we re-examine the role of the smiling high-level human relations. When you dig deeper into Dale's dictum, you'll find a 1936 quick smile doesn't always work, especially nowadays. The old-fashioned instant grin carries no weight with today's sophisticated crowd. Look at world leaders, negotiators, and corporate giants. Not a smiling sycophant among them. Key players in all walks of life enrich their smiles so when it does erupt, it has more potency and the world smiles with them. Researchers have cataloged dozens of different types of smiles. They range from the tight rubber band of a trapped liar to the soft squishy smile of a tickled infant. Some smiles are warm while others are cold. There are real smiles and fake smiles. You've seen plenty of those plastered on the faces of friends who say they are delighted you decided to drop by, and presidential candidates visiting your city who say they're thrilled to be in. 5. How to make your smile magically different. 1. Copyright 2003 by Lael Loans. Click here for terms of use. Big winners know their smile is one of their most powerful weapons, so they've fine-tuned it for maximum impact. How to fine-tune your smile. Just last year, my old college friend Missy took over her family business, a Midwestern company supplying corrugated boxes to manufacturers. One day she called saying she was coming to New York to court new clients, and she invited me to dinner with several of her prospects. I was looking forward to once again seeing me friend's quicksilver smile and hearing her contagious laugh. Missy was an incurable giggler, and that was part of her charm. When her dad passed away last year, she told me she was tacking over the business. I thought Missy's personality was a little bubbly to be a CEO in a tough business. But hey, what do I know about the corrugated box biz? She 3 of her potential clients and I met in the cocktail lounge of a midtown restaurant, and as we led them into the dining room, Missy whispered in my ear, "Please call me Melissa at night." Of course, I winked back. Not many company presidents are called Missy. Soon after the maitre d' seated us, I began noticing Melissa was a very different woman from the giggling girl I'd known in college. She was just as charming, she smiled as much as ever. Yet something was different, I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Although she was still effervescent, I had the distinct impression everything Melissa said was more insightful and sincere. She was responding with genuine warmth to her prospective clients, and I could tell they liked her too. I was thrilled because Mifrin was scoring a knockout that night. By the end of the evening, Melissa had 3 big new clients. 6. How to talk to anyone. Afterward, alone with her in the cab, I said, "Missy, you've really come a long way since you took over the company. Your whole personality has developed, well, a really cool, sharp corporate edge." Only one thing has changed," she said. "What's that?" "My smile," she said. "Your what?" I asked incredulously. "My smile," she repeated as though I hadn't heard her. "Yowsi," she said with a distant look coming into her eyes. "When Dad gets sick and knew in a few years I'd have to take over the business, he sat me down and had a life-changing conversation with me. I'll never forget his words. Dad said, "Missy, honey, remember that old song, I loves ya, honey, but your feet's too big." Well, if you're going to make it big in the box business, let me say, I loves ya, honey, but your smile's too quick. He then brought out a yellowed newspaper article quoting a study he'd been saving to show me when the time was right. It concerned women in business. The study showed women who wear slower to smile in corporate life were perceived as more credible. Missy talked. I began to think about history-making women like Margaret Thatcher, Indira Gandhi, Golda Meir, Madeleine Albright, and other powerful women of their ilk. Naton was known for her quick smile. Missy continued. The study went on to say a big warm smile is an asset, but only when it comes a little slower because then it has more credibility. From that moment on, Missy explained, she gave clients and business associates her big smile. However, she trained her lips to erupt more slowly. Thus her smile appeared more sincere and personalized for the recipient. That was it. Missy's slower smile gave her personality a richer, deeper, more sincere cachet. Though the delay was less than a sec, how to make your smile magically different. 7. On the recipients of her beautiful big smile felt it was special and just for them. I decided to do more research on the smile. When you're in the market for shoes, you begin to look at everyone's feet. When you decide to change your hairstyle, you look at everyone's haircut. Well, for several months I became a steady smile watcher. I watched smiles on the street, I watched smiles on TV, I watched the smiles of politicians, the clergy, corporate giants, and world leaders. My findings. Amid the sea of flashing teeth and parting lips, I discovered the people perceived to have the most credibility and integrity were just ever so slower to smile. Then, when faded, their smiles seemed to seep into every crevice of their face and envelop them like a slow flood. Thus, I call the following technique the flooding smile. Let us now travel but a few inches north to two of the most powerful communications tools you possess. Your eyes aid how to talk to anyone. Technique 1. The flooding smile. Don't flash an immediate smile when you greet someone, as though anyone who walked into your line-off site would be the beneficiary. Instead, look at the other person's face for a second. Pause, soak in their persona. Then let a big, warm, responsive smile flood over your face and overflow into your eyes. It will engulf the recipient like a warm wave. The split-second delay convinces people your flooding smile is genuine only for them. It's only a slight exaggeration to say Helen of Troy could launch ships with her eyes and Davy Crockett could stare down a bear. Your eyes are personal grenades that have the power to detonate people's emotions. Just as martial arts masters register their fists as lethal weapons, you can register your eyes as psychological lethal weapons when you master the following eye contact techniques. Beloved people in the game of life look beyond the conventional wisdom that teaches, keep good eye contact. For one, they understand that to certain suspicious or insecure people, intense eye contact can be a virulent intrusion. When I was growing up, my family had a Haitian housekeeper whose fantasies were filled with witches, warlocks, and black magic. Zola refused to be left alone in a room with Louis, my Siamese cat. Louis looks right through me, sees my soul, she'd whisper to me fearfully. In some cultures, intense eye contact is sorcery. In others, staring at someone can be threatening or disrespectful. Realizing this, big players in the international scene prefer to pack a book on cultural body language differences in their carry-on rather than a Berlitz phrase book. In our culture, however, big winners know exaggerated eye contact can be extremely advantageous, especially 9 How to Strike Everyone as Intelligent and Insightful by Using Your Eyes 2 Copyright 2003 by Lael Loans. Click here for terms of use. Between the sexes. In business, even when romance is not in the picture, strong eye contact packs a powerful wallop between men and women. A Boston center conducted a study to learn the precise effect. 5 The researchers asked opposite-sex individuals to have a 2-minute casual conversation. They tricked half their subjects into maintaining intense eye contact by directing them to count the number of times their partner blinked. They gave the other half of the subjects no special eye contact directions for the chat. When they questioned the subjects afterward, the unsuspecting blinkers reported significantly higher feelings of respect and fondness for their colleagues who, unbeknownst to them, had simply been counting their blinks. I've experienced the closeness intense eye contact engenders with a stranger firsthand. Once, when giving a seminar to several hundred people. One woman's face in the crowd caught my attention. The participant's appearance was not particularly unique. Yet she became the focus of my attention throughout my talk. Why? Because not for one moment did she take her eyes off my face. Even when I finished making a point and was silent, her eyes stayed hungrily on my face. I sensed she couldn't wait to savor the next insight to spout from my lips. I loved it. Her concentration and obvious fascination inspired me to remember stories and make important points I'd long forgotten. Right after my talk, I resolved to seek out this new friend who was so enthralled by my speech. As people were leaving the hall, I quickly sidled up behind my big fan. "Excuse me," I said. My fan kept walking. "Excuse me," I repeated a tad louder. My admirer didn't vary her pace as she continued out the door. I followed her into the corridor and tapped her shoulder gently. This time she whirled around with a surprised look on her face. I mumbled some excuse about my appreciating her concentration on my talk and wanting to ask her a few questions. 10 How to talk to anyone. Did you, get much out of the seminar? I ventured. Well, not really, she answered candidly. I had difficulty understanding what you were saying because you were walking around on the platform facing different directions. A heartbeat, I understood. The woman was hearing impaired. I did not captivate her as I had suspected. She was not intrigued by my talk as I had hoped. The only reason she kept her eyes glued on my face was because she was struggling to read my lips. Nevertheless, her eye contact had given me such pleasure and inspiration during my talk that, tired as I was, I asked her to join me for coffee. I spent the next hour recapping my entire seminar just for her. Powerful stuff, this eye contact. Make your eyes look even more intelligent. There is yet another argument for intense eye contact. In addition to awakening feelings of respect and affection, maintaining strong eye contact gives you the impression of being an intelligent and abstract thinker. Because abstract thinkers integrate incoming data more easily than concrete thinkers, they can continue looking into someone's eyes even during the silences. Their thought processes are not distracted by peering into their partner's peepers. 6 Back to our valiant psychologists. Yale researchers, thinking they had the unswerving truth about eye contact, conducted another study that they assumed would confirm the more eye contact, the more positive feelings. This time they directed subjects to deliver a personally revealing monologue. They asked the listeners to react with a sliding scale of eye contact while their partners talked. The results all went as expected when women told their personal stories to women. Increased eye contact encouraged feelings how to strike everyone as intelligent and insightful by using your eyes. 11. Of intimacy, but whoops, it wasn't so with the men. Some men felt hostile when stared at too long by another man. Other men felt threatened. Some few even suspected their partner was more interested than he should be and wanted to slug him. Your partner's emotional reaction to your profound gaze has a biological base. When you look intently at someone, it increases their heartbeat and shoots an adrenaline-like substance gushing through their veins. 7. This is the same physical reaction people have when they start to fall in love. And when you consciously increase your eye contact, even during normal business or social interaction, people will feel they have captivated you. Men talking to women and women talking to men or women use the following technique, which I call sticky eyes, for the joy of the recipient and for your own advantage. Guys, I'll have man-to-man modification of this technique for you in a moment. What about guys' eyes? Now, gentlemen, when talking to men, you too can use sticky eyes. Just make them a little less sticky when discussing personal matters with other men, lest your listener feel threatened or misinterpret your intentions. But do increase your eye contact slightly. 12. How to talk to anyone technique. 2. Sticky eyes. Pretend your eyes are glued to your conversation partner with sticky warm taffy. Don't break eye contact even after he or she has finished speaking. When you must look away, do it ever so slowly, reluctantly, stretching the gooey taffy until the tennis string finally breaks. More than normal with men on day-to-day communications, and a lot more when talking to women. It broadcasts a visceral message of comprehension and respect. I have a friend, Sammy, a salesman who unwittingly comes across as an arrogant chap. He doesn't mean to, but sometimes his brusque manner makes it look like he's running roughshod over people's feelings. Once while we were having dinner together in a restaurant, I told him about the sticky eyes technique. I guess he took it to heart. When the waiter came over, Sammy, uncharacteristically, instead of bluntly blurting out his order with his nose in the menu, looked at the waiter. He smiled, gave his order for the appetizer, and kept his eyes on the waiter for an extra second before looking down again at the menu to choose the main dish. I can't tell you how different Sammy seemed to me just then. He came across as a sensitive and caring man, and all it took was 2 extra seconds of eye contact. I saw the effect it had on the waiter, too, where received exceptionally gracious service the rest of the evening. A week later, Sammy called me and said, "Lael, sticky eyes has changed my life. I've been following it to a T with women and make my eyes real sticky and with men slightly sticky. And no everybody's treating me with such deference. I think it's part of the reason I've made more sales this week than all last month. If you deal with customers or clients in your professional life, sticky eyes is a definite boon to your bottom line. To most people in our culture, profound eye contact signals trust, knowledge, and I'm here for you attitude. Let's carry sticky eyes one step further. Like a potent medicine that has the power to kill or cure, the next eye contact technique has the potential to captivate or annihilate. How to strike everyone as intelligent and insightful by using your eyes. 13. Now we haul in the heavy eyeball artillery, very sticky eyes or superglue eyes. Let's call them epoxy eyes. Big bosses use epoxy eyes to evaluate employees. Police investigators use epoxy eyes to intimidate suspected criminals. And clever Romeos use epoxy eyes to make women fall in love with them. If romance is your goal, epoxy eyes is a proven aphrodisiac. The epoxy eyes technique takes at least 3 people to pull off, you, your target, and one other person. Here, how it works. Usually when you're chatting with 2 or more people, you gaze at the person who is speaking. However, the epoxy eyes technique suggests you concentrate on the listener, your target, rather than speaker. This slightly disorients the target and he or she silently asks, "Why is this person looking at me instead of the speaker?" Your target senses you are extremely interested in his or her reactions. This can be beneficial in certain business situations when it is appropriate that you judge the listener. Human resources professionals often use epoxy eyes, not a sad technique, but because they are sincerely interested in a prospective employee's reaction to certain ideas being presented. Attorneys, bosses, police investigators, psychologists, and others. 14 How to use your ISTO make someone fall in love with you. 3 Copyright 2003 by Lael Loans. Click here for terms of use. Who must examine subjects. Reactions also use epoxy eyes for analytical purposes. When you use epoxy eyes, it sends out signals of interest blended with complete confidence in yourself. But because epoxy eyes puts you in a position of evaluating or judging someone else, you must be careful. Don't overdo it or you could come across as arrogant and brazen. Sometimes using full epoxy eyes is too potent, so here is a gentler yet effective form. Watch the speaker but let your glance bounce to your target each time the speaker finishes a point. This way Mr. or Ms. Target still feels you are intrigued by his or her reactions, yet there is relief from the intensity. Use epoxy eyes to push their erotic button. If romance is on the horizon, epoxy eyes transmits yet another message. It says, I can't take my eyes off you, or I only have ice for you. Anthropologists have dubbed eyes the initial organ offraments because studies show intense eye contact plays havoc with our heartbeat. 8. It also releases a drug-like substance into our how to use your eyes to make someone fall in love with you. 15 Technique 3 Epoxy eyes. This brazen technique packs a powerful punch. Watch your target person even when someone else is talking. No matter who is speaking, keep looking at the man or woman you want to impact. Nervous system called phenylethylamine. Since this is the hormone detected in the human body during erotic excitement, intense eye contact can be a turn-on. Men, epoxy eyes is extremely effective on women if they find you attractive. The lady interprets her nervous reaction to your untoward gaze as budding infatuation. If she does not like you, however, your epoxy eyes is downright obnoxious. Never use epoxy eyes on strangers in public settings or you could get arrested. 16 How to talk to anyone. Do you remember the lyrics to the old Shirley Bassey song? The minute you walked in the joint, I could see you were a man of distinction, a real big spender. Good looking, so refined. Say, wouldn't you like to know what's going on in my mind? The goal of this first section is not to make you look like Ariel Big Spender. Rather, it is to give you the cachet of a real big somebody the moment people lay eyes on you. To that end, want to explore the most important technique to make you look like a very important person. When the doctor smacks your knee with that nasty little hammer, your foot jerks forward. Thus the phrase knee-jerk reaction. Your body has another instinctive reaction. When a big jolt of happiness hits your heart and you feel like a winner, your head jerks up automatically and you throw your shoulders back. A smile frames your lips and softens your eyes. This is the look winners have constantly. They stand with assurance, they move with confidence, they smile softly with pride. No doubt about it, good posture symbolizes that you are a man or woman who is used to being on top. 17 How to look like a big winner wherever you go. 4 Copyright 2003 by Lael Loans. Click here for terms of use. Obviously, millions of mothers sticking their knuckles between their kids' shoulder blades and trillions of teachers telling students, stand up straight, hasn't done the trick. We are a nation of slouchers. We need a technique more stern than teachers and more persuasive than parents to make us stand like a somebody. In one profession, perfect posture, perfect equilibrium, perfect balance is not only desirable, it's a matter of life and death. One false move, one slump of the shoulders, one hangdog look, can mean curtains for the high-wire acrobat. I'll never forget the first time Mama took me to the circus. When 7 men and women raced into the center ring, the crowd rose as though they were all joined at the hips. They cheered with one thunderous voice. Mama pressed her lips against me ear and reverently whispered these were the great Wallendas, the only troupe in the world to perform the 7-person pyramid without a net. In an instant, the crowd became hushed. Not a cough or a soda slurp was heard in the big top as Karl and Hermann Wallendash shouted cues in German to their trusting relatives. The family meticulously and majestically ascended into the position of a human pyramid. They then balanced precariously on a thin wire hundreds of feet above the hard dirt with no net between them and sudden death. The vision was unforgettable. To me, equally unforgettable was the beauty and grace of the 7 Wallendas racing into the center of the big top to take their bows. Each perfectly aligned, head high, shoulders back, standing so tall it still didn't seem like their feet were touching the ground. Every muscle in their bodies defined pride, success, and their joy of being alive. Still. Here is a visualization technique. Target your body looking like a winner who is in the habit of feeling that pride, success, and joy of being alive. 18 How to talk to anyone. Your posture is your biggest success barometer. Imagine you are a world-renowned acrobat, master of the Iron Jow act, waiting in the wings of the Ringling Bros and Barnum and Bailey Circus. Soon you will dart into the center ring to captivate the crowd with the precision and balance of your body. Before walking through any door, the door to your office, a party, a meeting, even your kitchen, picture a leather bit hanging by cable from the frame. It is swinging just an inch higher than your head. As you pass through the door, Throw your head back and chomp on the imaginary dental grip that first pulls your cheeks back into a smile and then lifts you up. As you ascend high above the gasping crowd, your body is stretched into perfect alignment, head high, shoulders back, torso out of hips, feet weightless. At the zenith of the tent, you spin like a graceful top to the amazement and admiration of the crowd craning their necks to watch you. Now you look like a somebody. One day, to test hang by your teeth, I decided to count how many times I walked through a doorway. 60 times even Athom. You calculate, twice out your front door, twice in, 6 times to the bathroom, 8 times to the kitchen, and through countless doors at your office. It adds up. Visualize anything 60 times a day and it becomes a habit. Habitual good posture is the first mark of a big winner. You are now ready to float into the room to captivate the crowd or close the sale, or maybe just settle for looking like the most important somebody in the room. You now have all the basics Bob the artist needs to portray you as a big winner. Like he said, great posture, a heads-up look, a confident smile, and a direct gaze. The ideal image for somebody who's a somebody. How to look like a big winner wherever you go. 19. Now let's put the whole act into motion. It's time to turn your attention outward to your conversation partner. Use the next 2 techniques to make him or her feel like a million. 20 How to talk to anyone. Technique 4 Hang by your teeth. Visualize a circus iron job at hanging from the frame off every door you walk through. Take a bite and with it firmly between your teeth, let it swoop you to the peak of the big top. When you hang by your teeth, every muscle is stretched into perfect posture position. Remember the old joke? The comic comes on stage and the first words out of his mouth are, "Well, how do you like me so far?" The audience always cracks up. Why? Because we all silently ask that question. Whenever we meet someone we know, consciously or subconsciously, how they're reacting to us. Do they look at us? Do they smile? Do they lean toward us? Do they somehow recognize how wonderful and special we are? We like those people. They have good taste. Or do they turn away, obviously unimpressed by our magnificence? The Cretans, 2 people getting to know each other, are like little puppies sniffing each other out. We don't have tails that wag or hair that bristles, but we do have eyes that narrow or widen, enhance that flash knuckles, or subconsciously soften in the palms up submit position. We have dozens of other involuntary reactions that take place in the first few moments of togetherness. Attorneys conducting voir dire are exquisitely aware of this. They pay close attention to your instinctive body reactions. They watch to see how fully you are facing them and just how far forward or back you're leaning while answering their questions. They check out your hands. Are they softly open, palms up, signifying acceptance of the ideas they're expressing? Or are you making a slight fist, knuckles out, signaling rejection? They scrutinize your 21 How to Win Their Heart by responding to their inner infant. 5 Copyright 2003 by Lael Loans. Click here for terms of use. Face for the split seconds you break eye contact when discussing relevant subjects like your feelings on big awards for damages or the death penalty. Sometimes attorneys bring along a legal assistant whose sole job is to sit on the sidelines and take precise note of your every fidget. An interesting aside. Trial lawyers often choose women to do this twitch and turn spying job because traditionally, females are sharper observers of subtle body cues than males. Women, more sensitive to emotions than men, often ask their husbands, "Is something bothering you, honey?" These supersensitive women accuse their husbands of being so insensitive to emotions that they wouldn't notice anything is wrong until their neckties are drenched in her tears. The attorney and the assistant then review your score on the dozens of subconscious signals you flashed. Depending on thirdly, you could find yourself on jury duty or twiddling your thumbs back in the juror's waiting room. Trial lawyers are so conscious of body language that, in the 1960s during the famous trial of the Chicago 7, defense attorney William Kunstler actually made a legal objection to Judge Julius Hoffman's posture. During the summation by the prosecution, Judge Hoffman leaned forward, which accused Kunstler sent a message to the jury of attention and interest. During his defense summation, complained Kunstler, Judge Hoffman leaned back, sending the jury a subliminal message of disinterest. You're on trial and you only have 10 seconds, like attorneys deciding whether they want you on their case. Everybody you meet makes a subconscious judgment on whether they want you in their lives. They base their verdict greatly on the same signals. Your body language answer to their unspoken question. Well, how do you like me so far? 22 How to talk to anyone. The first few moments of your reaction set the stage up in which the entire relationship will be played out. If you ever want anything from the new acquaintance, your unspoken answer to their unspoken question, "How do you like me so far?" must be, "Wow, I really like you." When a little 4-year-old feels bashful, he slumps, puts his arms up in front of his chest, steps back, and hides behind mommy's skirt. However, when little Johnny sees Daddy come home, he runs up to him, he smiles, his eyes get wide, and he opens his arms for a hug. A loving child's body is like a tiny flower bud unfolding to the sunshine. 20, 30, 40, 50 years of life on Earth make little difference. When 40-year-old Johnny is feeling timid, he slumps and folds his arms in front of his chest. When he wants to reject a salesman or business colleague, he turns away and closes him off with a myriad of body signals. However, when welcoming his loved one home after an absence, Big Johnny opens his body to her like a giant daffodil spreading its petals to the sun after airing storm. Treat people like big bobbies. Once I was at a corporate star-studded party with an attractive, recently divorced friend of mine. Carla had been a copywriter with one of the leading advertising agencies which, like so many companies then, had downsized. My girlfriend was both out off work and out of a relationship. At this particular party, the pickings for Carla were good, both personally and professionally. Several times as Carla and I stood talking, one good-looking corporate male beast or another would find himself within a few feet of us. More often than not, one of these desirable males would flash his teeth at Carla. She sometimes graced the tentatively courting male with a quick smile over her shoulder. But then she'd turn back to our mundane conversation, how to win their heart by responding to their inner infant, 23. As though she were hanging on my every word. I knew she was trying not to look anxious, but inside Carla was crying out, "Why doesn't he come speak to us?" Right after one prize corporate big cat smiled, but because of Carla's minimal reaction wandered back into the social jungle, I had to say, "Carla, do you know who that was? He's the head off Young and Rubicam in Paris. They're looking for copyrightists willing to relocate, and he's single," Carla moaned. Just then we heard a little voice down by Carla's left knee. We looked down simultaneously. Little 5-year-old Willie, the hostess's adorable young son, was tugging on Carla's skirt, obviously craving attention. "Well, well, well," Carla cried out, a big smile erupting all over her face. Carla turned toward him. Carla kneeled down, touched little Willie's elbow and crooned, "Well, hello there, Willie. How are you enjoying Mommy's nice party?" Little Willie beamed. When little Willie finally trundled off to tug on the garments off the next group of potential attention givers, Carla and I returned to our grown-up conversing. During our chat, corporate beasts continued to stalk Carla with their eyes, and she continued casting half smiles at them. She was obviously disappointed none of them was making a further approach. I had to bite my tongue. Finally, when I felt it was going to bleed from the pressure of my teeth, I said, "Carla, have you been noticing that 4 or 5 men have come over and smiled at you?" "Yes," Carla whispered, her eyes darting nervously around the room lest anyone overhear us. "And you've been giving them little half smiles," I continued. She murmured, now confused at my question. "Remember when little Willie came up and tugged on your skirt? Do you recall how you smiled that beautiful big smile off yours, turned toward him and welcomed him into our grown-up conversation?" 24. How to talk to anyone. "Yees," she answered haltingly. "Well, I have a request, Carla. I want you to give the next man who smiles at you that same big smile you gave Willie. I want you to turn toward him just like you did then. Maybe even reach out and touch his arm like you did Willie, and then welcome him into our conversation." "Lael, I couldn't do that." "Carla, do it." Sure enough, within a few minutes, another attractive man wandered our way and smiled. Carla played her Ralito perfection. She flashed her beautiful teeth, turned fully toward him and said, "Hello, come join us." He wasted no time accepting Carla's invitation. After a few moments I excused myself. Neither noticed my departure because they were in animated conversation. The last glimpse I had of my friend at the party was her floating out Thedor on the arm of her new friend. Just then the technique I call the big baby pivot was born. It is a skill that will help you win whatever your heart desires from whatever type of beasts you encounter in the social or corporate jungle. How to win their heart by responding to their inner infant. 25. Technique 5. The big baby pivot. Give everyone you meet the big baby pivot. The instant the two of you are introduced, reward your new acquaintance. Give the warm smile, the total body turn, and the undivided attention you would give a tinnityke who crawled up to your feet, turned a precious face up to yours, and beamed a big toothless grin. Pivoting 100% toward the new person shouts, "I think you are very, very special." Remember, buried deep inside everyone is a big baby who is rattling the crib, wailing out for recognition of how very special he or she is. The following technique reinforces the big baby suspicion that he or she is, indeed, the center of the universe. 26. How to talk to anyone. A very wise man with the funny name of Zig9 once told me, "People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care about them." Zig Ziglar is right. The secret to macking people like you is showing how much you like them. Your body is a 24-hour broadcasting station revealing to anyone within eyeshot precisely how you feel at any given moment. Even if your hang by your teeth posture is gaining their respect, your flooding smile and the big baby pivot are making them feel special, and your sticky eyes are capturing their hearts and minds, the rest of your body can reveal any incongruence. Every inch from the crinkle of your forehead to the position off your feet must give a command performance if you want to effectively present an "I care about you" attitude. Unfortunately, when meeting someone, our brains are in overdrive. Remember Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. He said of Cassius, "He has a lean and hungry look. He thinks too much. Such men are dangerous." So it is with our brains when conversing with a new acquaintance. Our brains become lean. Some of us are fighting off shyness. Others are frantically sizing up the situation and hungry. We're deciding what, if anything, we want from this potential relationship. So we think too much instead of respond. 27. How to make someone feel like an old friend at once. 6. Copyright 2003 by Lael Loans. Click here for terms of use. Eing with candid, unself-conscious friendliness. Such actions are dangerous to impending friendship, love, or commerce. When our bodies are shooting off 10,000 bullets off stimuli every second, a few shots are apt to misfire and reveal shyness or hidden hostility. We need a technique to ensure every shot aims right at the heart of our subject. We need to trick our bodwise into reacting perfectly. To find it, let's explore the only time we don't need to worry about any shyness or negativity slipping out through our body language. It's when we feel none. That happens when we're chatting with close friends. When we see someone we love or feel completely comfortable with, we respond warmly from head to toe without a thought. Our lips part happily. We step closer, our arms reach out. Our eyes become soft and wide. Even our palms turn up and our bodies turn fully toward our dear friend. How to trick your body into doing everything right. Here's a visualization technique that accomplishes all that. It guarantees that everyone you encounter will feel your warmth. I call it hello old friend. When meeting someone, play a mental trick on yourself. In your mind's eye, see him or her as an old friend, someone you had a wonderful relationship with years ago, but somehow you lost track of your friend. You tried so hard to find your good buddy, but there was no listing in the phone book. No information online, none of your mutual friends had a clue. Suddenly, wow, what a surprise. After all those years, that woe of you are reunited. You are so happy. That's where the pretending stops. Obviously, you are not going to try to convince the new person that the two of you are really old friends. You are not going to hug and kiss and say, great, oh, see you again, or how have you been all these years? You 28 how to talk to anyone. Merely say, hello, how do you do, I am pleased to meet you, but inside. It's a very different story. You will amaze yourself. The delight of rediscovery fills your face and buoys up your body language. I sometimes jokingly say if you were a light, you'd beam on the other person. If you were a dog, you'd be wagging your tail. You make this new person feel very special indeed. In my seminars, I first have people introduce themselves to another participant before they've learned the hello old friend technique. The group chats as though at a pleasant semi-formal gathering. Later, I ask them to introduce themselves to another stranger, imagining they are old friends. The difference is extraordinary. When they're using hello old friend, the room comesalive. The atmosphere is charged with good feeling. The air sparkles with happier, high-energy people. They are standing closer, laughing more sincerely and reaching out to one another. I feel like I'm attending a terrific bash that's been going on for hours. How to make someone feel like an old friend at once. 29 Technique 6 Hello old friend. When meeting someone, imagine he or she is an old friend, an old customer, an old beloved, or someone else you had great affection for. How sad the vicissitudes of life tore you two asunder. But holy mackerel, now the party, the meeting, the convention has reunited you with your long-lost old friend. The joyful experience starts a remarkable chain reaction in your body, from the subconscious softening of your eyebrows to the positioning of your toes and everything between. Not a word need be spoken. The hello old friend technique even supersedes language. Whenever you're traveling in countries where you don't speak the native tongue, be sure to use it. If you find yourself with a group of people who are all speaking a language unknown to you, just imagine them to be a group of your old friends. Everything is fine except they momentarily forgot how to speak English. In spite of the fact you won't understand a word, your whole body still responds with congeniality and acceptance. I've used the hello old friend technique while traveling in Europe. Sometimes my English-speaking friends who live there tell me their European colleagues say I am the friendliest American they've ever met. Yet we'd never spoken a word between us. A self-fulfilling prophecy. An added benefit to the hello old friend technique is it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you act as though you like someone, you start to really like them. In a Delphi University study called Appropriately, Believing Another Likes or Dislikes You, Behaviors Making the Beliefs Come True, proved it 10 researchers told volunteers to treat unsuspecting subjects as though they liked them. When surveyed later, the results showed the volunteers wound up genuinely liking the subjects. The unsuspecting subjects were also surveyed. These respondents expressed much higher respect and affection for the volunteers who pretended they liked them. What it boils down to is love begets love, like begets like, respect begets respect. Use the hello old friend technique and you will soon have many new old friends who wind up genuinely liking you. You now have all the basics to come across to everyone you meet as a somebody, a friendly somebody. But your job is over yet. In addition to being liked, you want to appear credible, intelligent, and sure of yourself. Each of the next 3 techniques accomplishes one of those goals. 30 How to talk to anyone. My friend Helen is a highly respected headhunter. She makes terrific hires for her clients, and I once asked her the secret of her success. Helen replied, probably because I can almost always tell when an applicant is lying. How can you tell? She said. Well, just last week, I was interviewing a young woman for a position as marketing director for a small firm. Throughout the interview, the applicant had been sitting with her left leg crossed over her right. Her hands were comfortably eaing in her lap, and she was looking directly at me. I asked her salary. Without swerving her eyes from mine, shuttled me. I asked if she enjoyed her work. Still looking directly at me, she said yes. Then I asked her why she left her previous job. At that point her eyes fleetingly darted away before regaining eye contact with me. Helen continued. Then while answering my question, she shifted in her seat and crossed her right leg over her left. At one point she put her hands up to her mouth, said, "That's all I needed." With her words she wasteling me, she felt her growth opportunities were limited at her previous firm. But her body told me she was not being entirely forthright. To come across as 100% credible to everyone. 7 Copyright 2003 by Lael Loans. Click here for terms of use. 32 How to talk to anyone. Helen went on to explain the young woman's fidgeting alone wouldn't prove she was lying. Nevertheless, it was enough, she said, that she wanted to pursue the subject further, so I tested it. Helen explained. I changed the subject and went back to more neutral territory. I asked her about her goals for the future. Again, the girl stopped fidgeting. She folded her hands in her lap as she told me how she'd always wanted to work in a small company in order to have hands-on experience with more than one project. Then I repeated my earlier question. I asked again if it wasn't the lack of growth opportunity that made her leave her previous position. Sure enough, once again, the woman shifted in her seat and momentarily broke eye contact. As she continued talking about her last job, she started rubbing her forearm. Continued to probe until she finally uncovered the truth. The applicant had been fired because of a nasty disagreement with the marketing director for whom she worked. Human resources professionals who interview applicants and police officers who interrogate suspected criminals are trained to detect lies. They know specifically what signals to look for. The rest of us, although not knowledgeable about specific clues toad seat, have a sixth sense when someone is not telling us the truth. Just recently a colleague of mine was considering hiring an in-house booking agent. After interviewing one fellow, she said to me, "I don't know, I don't really think he has the success he claims." "You think he's lying to you?" I asked. "Absolutely. And the funny thing is I can't tell why." He looked right at me. He answered all my questions directly. There was just something that didn't seem right. Employers often feel this way. They have a gut feeling about someone but they can't put their finger on it. Because of that, many large companies turn to the polygraph or lie detector, a mechanical apparatus designed to detect if someone is lying. Banks, drugstores, and grocery stores rely heavily on it for pre-employment screening. The FBI, Justice Department, and most police departments have used the polygraph on suspects. Interestingly, the polygraph is not a lie detector at all. All the machine can do is detect fluctuations in our autonomic nervous system, changes in breathing patterns, sweating, flushing, heart rate, blood pressure, and other signs of emotional arousal. So is it accurate? Well, yes, often it is. Why? Because when the average person tells a lie, he or she is emotionally aroused and bodily changes do take place. When that happens, the individual might fidget. Experienced or trained liars, however, can fool the polygraph. Beware of the appearance of lying. Even when you're telling the truth, problems arise for us when we are not lying but are feeling emotional or intimidated by the person with whom we are talking. A young man telling an attractive woman about his business success might shift his weight. A woman talking about her company's track record to an important client could rub her neck. More problems arise out of the atmosphere. A businessman who doesn't feel nervous at all could loosen his collar because the room is hot. A politician giving a speech outdoors could blink excessively because the air is dusty. Even though erroneous, the cephagety movements give the listeners the sense something just isn't right or a gut feeling that the speaker is lying. Professional communicators, alert to this hazard, consciously squelch any signs anyone could mistake for shiftiness. They fix a constant gaze on the listener. They never put their hands on their faces. They don't massage their arm when it tingles or rub their nose when it itches. They don't loosen their collar when it's hot or blink because it's sandy. They don't wipe away tiny perspiration how to come across as 100% credible to everyone. 33. Beads in public or shield their eyes from the sun. They suffer because they know fidgeting undermines credibility. Consider the infamous September 25, 1960, televised presidential debate between Richard Milhous Nixon and John Fitzgerald Kennedy. Political pundits speculate Nixon's lack of makeup, his fidgeting, and mopping his brow on camera lost him the election. If you want to come across as an entirely credible somebody, try to squelch all extraneous movement when your communicating on counts. I call the technique limit the fidget. Now let's tackle intelligence. What, you ask? Can people come across as more intelligent than they really are? Well, did you ever hear of Hans the counting horse? Hans was considered the most intelligent horse in history, and he used the technique I'm about to suggest. 34 How to talk to anyone. Technique 7 Limit the fidget whenever your conversation really counts. Let your nose itch, your ear tingle, or your foot prickle. Do not fidget, twitch, wiggle, squirm, or scratch. And above all, keep your paws away from your puss. Hand motions near your face, and all fidgeting can give your listener the gut feeling you're fibbing. Hans, a very clever horse, inspires this next technique. Hans was owned by Herr von Osten, a Berliner who had trained Hans to do simple arithmetic by tapping his right front hoof. So prodigious was Hans's ability that the horse's fame quickly spread throughout Europe in the early 1900s. He became known as Clever Hans, the counting horse. Herr von Osten taught Hans to do more than just add. Soon the horse could subtract and divide. In time, Clever Hans even mastered the multiplication tables. The horse became quite a phenomenon. Without his owner uttering a single word, Hans could count out the size of his audience, tap the number wearing glasses, or respond to any counting question they asked him. Finally, Hans achieved the ultimate ability that separates man from animal: language. Hans learned the alphabet. By tapping out hoofbeats for each letter, he answered any question about anything humans had read in a newspaper or heard on the radio. He could even answer common questions about history, geography, and human biology. Hans made headlines and was the main topic of discussion at dinner parties throughout Europe. The human horse quickly attracted the attention of scientists, psychology professors. Veterinary 35 How to Read People Like You Have ESB 8 Copyright 2003 by Lael Loans. Click here for terms of use. 36 How to Talk to Ionarians, even cavalry officers. Naturally, they were skeptical. Sathi established an official commission to decide whether the horse was a case of clever trickery or equine genius. Whatever their suspicions, it was obvious to all, Hans was a very smart horse. Compared to other horses, Hans was a somebody. Cut to today. Why is it when you talk with certain individuals you just know they are smarter than other people, that they are a somebody? Often they're not discussing highfalutin subjects or using $2 words. Nevertheless, everybody knows, please say she's smart as a whip. He doesn't miss a trick. She picks up on everything. He's got the right stuff. She's got horse sense. Which brings us back to Hans. The day of the big test arrived. Everyone was convinced it must be a trick orchestrated by Herr von Osten, Hans's owner. It was standing room only in the auditorium, filled with scientists, reporters, clairvoyants, psychics, and horse lovers who eagerly awaited the answer. The canny commission members were confident this was the day they would expose Hans as chicanery because they too had a trick up their sleeves. They were going to bar von Osten from the hall and put his horse to the test all alone. When the crowd was assembled, they told von Osten he must leave the auditorium. The surprised owner departed, and Hans was stranded in an auditorium with a suspicious and anxious audience. The confident commission leader asked Hans the first mathematical question. He tapped out the right answer. A second, he got it right, then a third, then the language questions followed. He got them all right. The commission was befuddled. The critics were silenced, however the public was. With a great outcry, they insisted in a new commission. The world waited while once again the authorities gathered scientists, professors, veterinarians, cavalry officers, and reporters from around the world. Only after the second commission put Hans to the test did the truth about the clever horse come out. Commission number 2 started the inquiry perfunctorily with a simple addition problem. This time, however, instead of asking the question out loud for all to hear, one researcher whispered a number in Hans's ear, and a second researcher whispered another. Everyone expected Hans to quickly tap out the sum, but Hans remained dumb. Aha! The researchers revealed the truth to the waiting world. Can y'all guess what that was? Here's a hint. When the audience or researcher knew things were, Hans did too. Now can you guess? People gave off very subtle body language signals the moment Hans's hoof gave the right number of taps. When Hans started tapping the answer to a question, the audience would show subtle signs of tension. Then when Hans reached the right number, they responded by an expulsion of breath or slight relaxation off muscles. Von Osten trained Hans to stop tapping at that point and therefore appear to give the right answer. Hans was using the technique I call Hans's horse sense. He watched his audience's reactions very carefully and planned his responses accordingly. If a horse can do it, so can you. Have you ever been watching TV when the phone rings? Someone asks you to hit the mute button on the television so they can talk. Because there's no sound now, you watch the TV action more carefully. You see performers smiling, scowling, smirking, squinting, and scores of other expressions. You don't miss a bit of the story because just from their expressions you can tell what they're thinking. Hans's horse sense is just that, watching people, seeing how they are reacting, and then making your moves accordingly. Even while you're talking, keep your eyes on your listeners and watch how they are responding to what you're saying. Don't miss a trick. How to read people like you have ESB 37. Are they smiling? Are they nodding? Are their palms up? They like what they're hearing? Are they frowning? Are they looking away? Are their knuckles clenched? Maybe they don't. Are they rubbing their necks? Are they stepping back? Are their feet pointing toward the door? Maybe they want to get away. You don't need a complete course in body language here. Already your life's experience has given you a good grounding in that. Most people know if their conversation partners step back or look away, they're not interested in what you're saying. When they think you're a pain in the neck, they rub theirs. When they feel superior to you, they steeple their hands. We'll explore more body language specifics in Technique 77, Eyeball Selling. For the moment, all you need to do is tune to the silent channel being broadcast by the speaker. You now have 8 techniques to help you come across as a confident, credible, and charismatic person who makes every own, or she comes in contact with, feel like a million. Let's explore your last technique in this section to put it all together. And make sure you don't miss a beat. 38 How to Talk to Anyone. Technique 8 Hans's horse sense. Make it a habit to get on a dual track while talking. Express yourself, but keep a keen eye on how your listener is reacting to what you're saying. Then plan your moves accordingly. If a horse can do it, so can a human. People will say you pick up on everything. You never miss a trick. You've got horse sense. You've seen professional skiing on television. The athlete at the top off the piste, every muscle primed and poised, waiting for the gun to propel him to ultimate victory. Look deeply into his eyes and you'll see he is having an out-of-body experience. In his mind's eye, the skier is swooshing down the slope, zapping back and forth between the poles and sliding across the finish line in faster time than the world thought possible. The athlete is visualizing. All athletes do it. Divers, runners, jumpers, javelin throwers, lugers, swimmers, skaters, acrobats. They visualize their magic before performing it. They see their own bodies bending, twisting, flipping, or flying through the air. They hear the sound of thuin, the splash in the water, the whir of the javelin, the thud off its landing. They smell the grass, the cement, the pool, the dust. Before they move a muscle, professional athletes watch the whole movie, which of course ends in their own victory. Sports psychologists tell us visualization is not just for top-level competitive athletes. Studies show mental rehearsal helps weekend athletes sharpen their golf, their tennis, their running, whatever their favorite activity. Experts agree if you see the pictures, hear the sounds, and feel the movements of your body and your mind before you do the activity, the effect is powerful. 39 How to make sure you don't miss a single beat. 9 Copyright 2003 by Lael Loans. Click here for terms of use. 26 miles on my mattress, psychological mumbo-jumbo? Absolutely not. My friend Richard runs marathons. Once, several years ago, a scant 3 weeks before the big New York Marathon, an out-of-control car crashed into Richard's and he was taken to the hospital. He was not badly injured. Nevertheless, his friends felt sorry for him because being laid up 2 weeks in bed would naturally knock him out of the big event. What a surprise when on that crisp November marathon morning in Central Park, Richard showed up in his little shorts and big running shoes. "Richard, are you crazy? You're in no shape to run, you've been in bed these past few weeks," we all cried out. "My body may have been in bed," he replied, "but I've been running," we asked in unison. "Yep, every day, 26 miles, 385 yards right there on me mattress." Richard explained that in his imagination he saw himself traversing every step of the course. He saw the sights, heard the sounds, and felt the twitching movements in his muscles. He visualized himself racing in the marathon. Richard didn't do as well as he had the year before, but the miracle is he finished the marathon without injury, without excessive fatigue thanks to his visualization. It works in just about any endeavor you apply it to, including being a terrific communicator. Visualization works best when you feel totally relaxed. Only when you have a calm state of mind can you get clear, vivid images. Do your visualization in the quiet of your home or car before leaving for the party, the convention, or the big deal meeting. See it all in your mind's eye ahead of time. You now have the skills necessary to get you started on the right foot with any new person in your life. Think of yourself in 40 how to talk to anyone. These first moments like a rocket taking off. When the folks at Cape Kennedy aim a spacecraft for the moon, a mistake in the millionth of a degree at the beginning when the craft is still on the ground means missing the moon by thousands of miles. Likewise, a tiny body language blooper at the outset of a relationship may mean you will never make a hit with that person. But with the flooding smile, sticky eyes, epoxy eyes hang by your teeth, the big baby pivot, hello old friend, limit the fidget, hands is horse sense, and watch the scene before you make the scene, you'll be right on course to get whatever you eventually want from anybody, be it business, friendship, or love. We now move from the silent world to the spoken word. How to make sure you don't miss a single beat. 41 Technique 9 Watch the scene before you make the scene. Rehearse being the super somebody you want to be ahead of time. See yourself walking around with hang by your teeth posture, shaking hands, smiling the flooding smile and making sticky eyes. Hear yourself chatting comfortably with everyone. Feel the pleasure of knowing you are in peak form and everyone is gravitating toward you. Visualize yourself a super somebody. Then it all happens automatically. This page intentionally left blank. 43 Part 2 How to know what to say after you say hi. Just as the first glimpse should please their eyes, your first words should delight their ears. Your tongue is a welcome mat embossed with either welcome or go away. To make your conversation partner feel welcome, you must master small talk. Small talk. Can you hear the shudder? Those two little words drive a stake into the hearts of some otherwise fearless and undaunted souls. Invite them to a party where they don't know anyone, and it mainlines queasiness into their veins. If this sounds familiar, take consolation from the fact that the brighter the individual, the more he or she detests small talk. When consulting for Fortune 500 companies, I was astounded. Top executives, completely comfortable making big talk with their boards of directors or addressing their stockholders, confessed they felt like little lost children at parties where the prater was less than prodigious. Small talk haters take further consolation from the fact that you are in star-studded company. Fear of small talk and stage fright are the same thing. The butterflies you feel in your stomach when you're in a room full of strangers flutter round the tum. Copyright 2003 by Lael Loans. Click here for terms of use. Mize of top performers. Pablo Casals complained of lifelong stage fright. Carly Simon curtailed live performances because of it. A friend of mine who worked with Neil Diamond said he insisted the words to song Sung Blue, a tune he'd been crooning for 40 years, be displayed on his teleprompter lest fear freeze him into forgetfulness. Is small talkophobia curable? Someday, scientists say, communications fears may be treatable with drugs. They're already experimenting with Prozac to change people's personalities. But some fear disastrous side effects. The good news is that when human beings think and genuinely feel certain emotions, like confidence that they have specific techniques to fall back on, the brain manufactures its own antidotes. If fear and distaste of small talk is the disease, knowing solid techniques like the ones we explore in this section is the cure. Incidentally, science is beginning to recognize it's not chance or even upbringing that one person has a belly of butterflies and another doesn't. In our brains, neurons communicate through chemicals called neurotransmitters. Some people have excessive levels of a neurotransmitter called norepinephrine, a chemical cousin of adrenaline. For some children, just walking into a kindergarten room makes them want to run and hide under a table. As a tot, I spent a lot of time under the table. As a preteen in an all-girls boarding school, my legs turned to linguini every time I had to converse with a male. In 8th grade, I once had to invite a boy to our school prom. The entire selection of dancing males lived in the dormitory of our brother school, and I only knew owner-resident Eugene. I had met Eugene at summer camp the year before. Mustering all my courage, I decided to call him. 2 weeks before the dance, I felt the onset of sweaty palms. I put the call off. 1 week before, rapid heartbeat set in. I put 44 how to talk to anyone. The call off. Finally, 3 days before the big bash, breathing became difficult. Time was running out. The critical moment I rationalized would be easier if I read from a script. I wrote out the following. Hi, this is Lael. We met at camp last summer, remember? I programmed in a pause where I hoped he would say yes. Well, National Cathedral School's prom is this Saturday night and I'd like you to be my date. I programmed in another pause where I prayed he'd say yes. On Thursday before the dance, I could no longer delay the inevitable. I picked up the receiver and dialed. Clutching the phone waiting for Eugene to answer, my eyes followed perspiration droplets rolling down my arm and dripping off my elbow. A small salty puddle was forming around my feet. Hello. A sexy deep male voice answered the dorm phone. In faster than a speeding bullet voice like a nervous novice telemarketer, I shot out. Hi, this is Lael. We met at camp last summer, remember? Forgetting to pause for his assent, I raced on. Well, National Cathedral School's prom is this Saturday night and I'd like you to be my date. My relief and delight, I heard a big cheerful, oh that's great, I'd love to. I exhaled my first normal breath all day. He continued, I'll pick you up at the girls' dorm at 7:30. I'll have a pink carnation for you. Will that go with your dress? And my name is Donnie. Donnie, who said anything about Donnie? Well, Donnie turned out to be the best date I had that decade. Donnie had buck teeth, a head full of tousled red hair, and communication skills that immediately put me at ease. On Saturday night, Donnie greeted me at the door, carnation in hand and grin on face. He joked self-deprecatingly about how it was dying to go to the prom, so, knowing it was a case of mistaken identity, he accepted anyway. He told me he was thrilled how to know what to say after you say hi 45. When the girl with the lovely voice called, and he took full responsibility for tricking me into an invitation. Donnie made him comfortable and confident as we chatted. First we made small talk and then he gradually led me into subjects I was interested in. I flipped over Donnie, and he became my very first boyfriend. Donnie instinctively had the small talk skills that we are now going to fashion into techniques to help you glide through small talk like a hot knife through butter. When you master them, you will be able, like Donnie, to melt the heart of everyone you touch. The goal of how to talk to anyone is not, of course, to make you a small talk whiz and stop there. The aim is to make you a dynamic conversationalist and forceful communicator. However, small talk is the first crucial step toward that goal. 46 How to talk to anyone. You've been there, you're introduced to someone at a party or Busyness meeting, you shake hands, your eyes meet, and suddenly your entire body of knowledge dries up and thought processes come to a screeching halt. You fish for a topic to fill the awkward silence. Failing. Your new contact slips away in the direction of the cheese tray. We want the first words falling from our lips to be sparkling, witty, and insightful. We want our listeners to immediately recognize how riveting we are. I was once at a gathering where everybody was sparkling, witty, insightful, and riveting. It drove me berserk because most of these same everybody's felt they had top rivet in their first 10 words or less. Several years ago, the Mensa organization, a social group of extremely bright individuals who score in the country's top 2% in intelligence, invited me to be keynote speaker at their annual convention. Their cocktail party was in full swing in the lobby of the hotel as I arrived. After checking in, I hauled my bags through the horde of happy hour Mensans to the elevator. The doors separated and I stepped into an elevator packed with partygoers. As we began the journey up to our respective floors, the elevator gave several sleepy jerks. 47 How to Start Great Small Talk. 10 Copyright 2003 by Lael Loans. Click here for terms of use. I remarked in response to the elevator's sluggishness, the elevator seems a little flaky. Suddenly each elevator occupant, feeling compelled to exhibit his or her 132 plus IQ, pounced forth with a thunderous explanation. It's obviously got per rail guide alignment, announced one. The relay contact is not made up, declared another. Suddenly I felt like a grasshopper trapped in a stereo speaker. I couldn't wait to escape the attack off the mental giants. Afterward, in the solitude of my room, I thought back and reflected that the Menson's answers were indeed interesting. Within did I have an adverse reaction? I realized it was too much too soon. I was tired. Their high energy and intensity jarred my sluggish state. You see, small talk is not about facts or words. It's about music, about melody. Small talk is about putting people at ease. It's about making comforting noises together like cats purring, children humming, or groups chanting. You must first match your listener's mood. Like repeating the note on the music teacher's harmonica, top communicators pick up on their listener's tone of voice and duplicate it. Instead of jumping in with such intensity, the Mensons could have momentarily matched my lethargic mood by saying, "Yes, it is slow, isn't it?" Had they then prefaced their information with, "Have you ever been curious why an elevator is slow?" You would have responded with a sincere, "Yes, I have." After a moment off equalized energy levels, I would have welcomed their explanations about the rail guard alignment or whatever the heck it was, and friendships might have started. I'm sure you've suffered the aggression of a mood mismatch. Have you ever been relaxing when some overexcited, hot-breathed colleague starts pounding you with questions? Or the reverse, you're late rushing to a meeting when an associate stops you and starts lazily narrating a long, languorous story. No matter how interesting the tale, you don't want to hear it now. 48 How to talk to anyone. The first step in starting a conversation without strangling itis to match your listener's mood, if only for a sentence or two. When it comes to small talk, think music, not words. Is your list tenor, adagio, or allegro? Match that pace. I call it make a mood match. Matching their mood can make or break the sale. Matching customers' moods is crucial for salespeople. Some years ago, I decided to throw a surprise party for my best friend Stella. It was going to be a triple whammy party because she was celebrating 3 events. 1, it was Stella's birthday. 2, she was newly engaged. And 3, Stella had just landed her dream job. She had been my buddy since grade school, and I was floating on air over her birthday engagement congratulations bash. I had heard one of the best French restaurants in town had an attractive back room for parties. About 5 p.m. one afternoon, I wafted happily into the restaurant and found the seated maître d' languidly looking over his reservation book. I began excitedly babbling about Stella's triple whammy celebration and asked to see that fabulous back room I'd heard so much about. Without a smile or moving a muscle, he said, "Z room is in Z back, you can go Z eat if you like." Crash, what a party pooper. His morose mood kicked all the party spirit out of me, and I no longer wanted to rent his stupid space. Before I even looked at the room, he lost the rental. I left his restaurant vowing to find a place where the management would at least appear to share the joy of the happy occasion. Every mother knows this instinctively. To quiet a whimpering infant, mama doesn't just shake her finger and shout, "Quiet them." No, mama picks baby up. Mama cries, "Ooh, ooh, oh," sympathetically matching baby's misery for a few moments. Mammoth gradually transitions the two of them into hush-hush happy how to start great small talk. 49. Sounds, your listeners are all big bobbies. Match their mood if ya want them to stop crying, start buying, or otherwise come round to your way of thinking. 50 How to talk to anyone. Technique 10 Make a mood match before opening your mouth. Take a voice sample off your listener to detect his or her state of mind. Take a psychic photograph of the expression to see if your listener looks buoyant, bored, or blitzed. If you ever want to bring people around to your thoughts, you must match their mood and voice tone, if only for a moment. Once while at a party, I spotted a fellow surrounded by a fan club of avid listeners. The chap was smiling, gesticulating, and obviously enthralling his audience. I went over to hearken to this fascinating speaker. I joined his throng of admirers and eavesdropped for a minute or two. Suddenly it dawned on me, the fellow was saying the most banal things. His script was dull, dull, dull. But he was delivering his prosaic observations with such passion, and therefore he held the group spellbound. It convinced me that it's not all what you say, it's how you say it. What's a good opening line when I meet people? I am often asked this question, and I give them the same answer a woman who once worked in my office always gave me. Dottie often stayed at her desk to work through lunch. Sometimes, as I was leaving for the sandwich shop, I'd ask her, "Hey Dottie, what can I bring you back for lunch?" 51 How to sound like you've got a super personality no matter what you're saying. 11 Copyright 2003 by Lael Loans. Click here for terms of use. Dottie, trying to be obliging, would say, "Oh, anything is fine with me." "No, Dottie," I wanted to scream. "Tell me what you want. Ham and cheese on rye, bologna on whole wheat, hold the mayo, peanut butter and jelly with sliced bananas. Be specific. Anything is a hassle." Frustrating though it may be, my answer to the opening line question is anything. Because almost anything you say really is okay as long as it puts people at ease and sounds passionate. How do you put people at ease? By convincing them they are okay and that the two of you are similar. When you do that, you'll break down walls of fear, suspicion, and mistrust. Why banal makes a bond. Samuel I. Hayakawa was a college president, U.S. senator, and brilliant linguistic analyst of Japanese origin. He tells us this story that shows the value of, as he says, unoriginal remarks. Early 1943, after the attack on Pearl Harbor, at a time when there were rumors of Japanese spies, Hayakawa had to wait several hours in a railroad station in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. He noticed authors waiting in the station were staring at him suspiciously. Because of the war, they were apprehensive about his presence. Hell later wrote, one couple with a small child was staring with special uneasiness and whispering to each other. What did Hayakawa do? He made unoriginal remarks to set them at ease. He said to the husband that it was too bad Thetrin should be late on so cold a night. The man agreed. I went on, Hayakawa wrote, to remark that it must be especially difficult to travel with a small child in winter when train schedules were so uncertain. Again the husband agreed. I then asked the child's age and remarked that their child looked very big 52 how to talk to anyone. And strong for his age. Again agreement, this time with a slight smile. The tension was relaxing. 2 or 3 more exchanges. The man asked Hayakawa, I hope you don't mind my bringing it up, but you're Japanese, aren't you? Do you think the Japs have any chance of winning this war? Well, Hayakawa replied, your guess is as good as mine. I didn't know any more than I read in the papers, but the way I figure it, I don't see how the Japanese, with their lack of coal and steel and oil, can ever beat a powerfully industrialized nation like the United States. Hayakawa went on, my remark was admittedly neither original nor well-informed. Hundreds of radio commentators were saying much the same thing during those weeks, but just because they were. The remark sounded familiar and was on the right side so that it was easy to agree with. The Wisconsin man agreed at once with what seemed like genuine relief. His next remark was, say, I hope your folks aren't over there while the war is going on. Yes, they are, Hayakawa replied. My father and mother and 2 young sisters are over there. Do you ever hear from them? The man asked. How can I? Hayakawa answered. Both the man and his wife looked troubled and sympathetic. Do you mean you won't be able to see them or hear from them until after the war is over? There was more to the conversation, but the result was, within minutes they had invited Hayakawa, whom they initially may have suspected was a Japanese spy, to visit them sometime in their city and have dinner in their home. And all because of this brilliant scholar's admittedly common and unoriginal small talk. Top communicators know the most soothing and appropriate first words should be, like Senator Hayakawa's, unoriginal, even banal, how to sound like you've got a super personality 53. But not indifferent. Hayakawa delivered his sentiments with sincerity and passion. Assent from banality. It is not necessary, of course, to stay with mundane remarks. If you find your company displays cleverness or wit, you match that. The conversation then escalates naturally, compatibly. Don't rush.